Wayfinders Collective. I'm here today to share an eye-opening but quick exercise to help you think through any fears that you might be holding on to about taking on a new path in your life, making change in your life as a Wayfinder, and how to reframe them as hopes and wishes for your future. Now, if you're like me, making change is hard. There are some people out in the world who really relish change and look forward to it. But for a lot of us, change is really scary. Sometimes it can be downright paralyzing. And why is that? The reason is because making a change involves committing to taking a creative risk. Saying that we're interested in pursuing a change that makes our lives better, different, more interesting, more meaningful, that's actually opening ourselves up to something unknown, something new, something unexplored, and that takes courage. So, change is scary, and today I want to talk through how to manage our fears around change and, like I said, transform them into hopes. So first of all, for those who know me, you know I love to run workshops and facilitate important conversations. And one of the exercises I've always enjoyed running is actually something I call Hopes and Fears. I recently came across a terrific site called Gamestorming, started by someone named Dave Gray. And one of the games that Dave has created is called Flip It. Now, Flip It is really interesting because in a lot of ways it really connects to the hopes and fears exercise that I have been using in many workshops myself, except with a much cooler name. So today I want to introduce you to what I'm thinking of as the Wayfinders Collective version of Flip It, and I want to thank Dave for your inspiration here. So if you haven't had a chance to download the Flip It activity PDF, go ahead, pause the video, print it out, and come on back when you're ready. But if you have it, we'll start to walk through it. So change is scary. And the reality is that often we can, like I said, be kind of paralyzed by our feelings of fear. But that doesn't mean that change isn't worth it, right? So what can we do to move past our fears, understand them, and then move forward? Funny enough, for me, I've often found that actually naming my fears, saying them either out loud or on a piece of paper, actually really helps. It sounds counterintuitive, but the truth is putting names to our fears in a funny way kind of sucks all the power out of them. And they go from being these really paralyzing things and really transformed into challenges that suddenly we can figure out ways to design solutions to address them. I know when I launched Wayfinders Collective, I was feeling a number of different fears, and I found that by actually working through this exercise myself, suddenly my fears felt more doable. So think about the change that you're trying to make in your life. And what kinds of fears you might be feeling. Maybe they're about money. Say you want to quit your job and freelance, but you're really afraid that you won't be able to pay your bills. Maybe they're about reputation, like what will my parents or my friends think of me if I decide to start from fresh and move in a totally new direction. It could be about qualifications, like how could I possibly know anything about this new path that I'm trying to pursue. Maybe it's something totally different. With Wayfinders Collective and getting going, I know I've felt a lot of fears. Many of them I've just named, but many that I haven't. But again, by naming them, I started to see that it was possible to move through them and find a way forward. So take a moment and think about what those fears are and name them as best you can. It could be a few, it could be a lot. There's a lot of space on this worksheet to fill it up in whatever way that makes sense. But then from there, take a minute now to think about how you could actually transform those fears into hopes. And by hopes, what I really mean is the wishes that you have for your future when you're able to make this change, when you really pursue this path as a Wayfinder and create the life that you're aiming for. So say your fear is around money, and you say, how am I going to pay my bills? Well, you can reframe that as a hope that new opportunities will present themselves and that financially they'll support you. You know, putting out that intention and that wish for yourself. If it's about reputation, perhaps the hope becomes that because this is a more authentic path for me, people will recognize and respect my expertise the more I lean into it and participate in this way. If it's about qualifications, maybe the hope or the wish is that, you know, I know what I know, but I also know when I need to ask for help, and that I'll pursue those avenues of help when I need them. So think about, again, what your fears are and how you can reframe them as hopes. And from there, after you've done that exercise and you've filled up your Flip It worksheet, I'd love for you to check in with yourself. How did it feel to work through your fears? Did naming them make you feel tense and anxious, or did it help kind of relax you because you could see on a piece of paper what was really in front of you? And as you worked through your hopes, did you start to feel like things were more doable? Like maybe you could actually envision this change and see the positives, not just the scary stuff. After you've worked through all of that, thinking through and reviewing your hopes in particular, what hopes are most inspiring for you? Is there one or maybe two that you see on the page that just leap out like, yes, this is the reason why I'm making this change? And I ask, how could you remind yourself of this hope? How could you create little moments, little breadcrumbs to help kind of feed you when you're feeling most discouraged or perhaps confused? I love Post-its, as you can probably tell. So for me, when I want to hold on to a hope and remind myself of the vision that I have for this change I'm creating, I'll put Post-it notes everywhere, including on my bathroom mirror for a morning pep talk. For you, it might be sharing one of your most important and inspiring hopes with your partner or your best friend and asking them to remind you of this when you're feeling discouraged or down. I recently heard that FEAR is actually an acronym that stands for False Evidence Appearing Real. Now, I don't know that every fear can fit under this umbrella because certainly there are some real fears, and fear really does serve a purpose in our lives, like fear of crossing the street when there's busy traffic. My instinct should tell me I shouldn't do that. That's real fear. But my hope is that by going through the Flip It exercise and really confronting your fears head on, you'll see that actually some of the fears you're holding on to about this change, it's not that they're unfounded or not real. They are real, but they're manageable. You can work through them, you can name them and acknowledge them, and then begin to identify the path forward for transforming them into your true wishes and hopes for where you're heading. Really getting back to the business of creative wayfinding and navigating your path through work and life. So enjoy. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback. If you give this exercise a try, please let me know how it went, what you thought, and please share with friends that are also on their wayfinding journey. Thanks so much and see you again soon.